and upgrading practices, a way forward. This is a 90-minute session, so it's going to end at 11 p.m. And I just want to let you know that I'm your moderator for today, and I'll be here to help you out. If you have any questions or you need any kind of support, just let me know. And I'm here if you have any, if you need any help or if you have any questions, let me know in the chat box and we can help you out. And my colleague Minerva is also joining me. Danai is here with me. Danai is a teacher educator, an editor, content developer, and an author. Thank you, Danai, for being here.
Thank you, Suresh. Hello, everyone.
Hi, it's the final one today, Danai. How do you feel?
It's bittersweet.
Right? I know, but oh gosh. Moving on, and we have Dita who's joined us for the sessions as well. I'm not sure Dita is going to join us today, but you're well versed if you attended the session yesterday. She's also a teacher, trainer, online trainer, content developer. And moving on, just quick housekeeping slide. You can ask us questions in the chat box or the Q&A box. We will provide you the recording as well as the presentation of this session as well. So make sure you look at your inbox for the recording. And also, we will send you the certificate for the session. If you attended any one of the sessions, you will get the certificate by next week. So please make sure you check your junk box, your spam, all of those places, because once the certificate is issued, it's very hard for us to issue it once more. It's all automatic from the system. So we aren't able to do this manually, unfortunately. And we want to make sure you get your certificate. And just before I pass on, last slide, I just want to let you know, oops, that's not my slide, that your chat box currently is set to host and panelists right here. If you can click on the drop down and select everyone, then everyone can see your comments. So just make sure you click on the drop down button and select everyone. I hope that's clear. And that's all for me from my side. I can hand over to Danai now. If you have any questions for me, let me know now. Otherwise, I will be here. Okay, thanks. I will stop sharing now.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. Oops, sorry, that was wrong. Okay, this is the last session, so as it happened.
Sorry, I think you'll have to change the display settings. I can see your next slide.
Oh, all right. I thought I'd got it right this time.
Now I think you have.
Okay, fine.
I mean, not yet. I can still see the next slide.
Then I might have to get out and... How about now?
No, not yet. You want to stop sharing and start again? This happened with Gita yesterday, and oddly, it started working. Yeah, stop sharing and start again.
Okay.
Yes, Osama Mubarak, your name is clear to us, and we don't need to take the attendance. You are marked automatically when you enter this webinar. I hope that answers your question. Any more burning questions? You're very welcome, Walid. You're very welcome, Walid. No problem, Danai. Technical difficulties take place all the time.
Yeah, something's not working right today. I don't know what exactly.
Are you not able to share your screen?
No, not really.
What's wrong?
I don't know.
Well, we were able to look at it. Now I don't know what happened. I mean, we could see your screen, to be honest. It's okay, we're waiting.
Sorry about this. I don't know what is going on. Okay. Wait a minute.
Take your time.
Can you see
Yeah,
anything now?
Yes, yes. You can see secondary teacher session. Yes.
Okay.
Perfect. Got it. Got it.
Finally.
Yes.
Okay, fine. Okay, everyone. Sorry about this. Okay. Thank you, Walid. Good, Iman. Thank you. Okay. All right. So it's a wrap-up session, okay, but I'm also going to try and suggest a few things that you can do, maybe. But I would like you to please express your opinion as much as possible, interact as much as possible throughout. Okay, so we've talked a lot about collaboration, communication to some extent, and interpretation is the other item that I would like to add. Why? Because we might say the same thing, but not mean the same thing. Even with very simple words, our interpretation might vary, and this happens all the time. So it's a good idea to bear it in mind when you're teaching, as well as when you're, yes, collaboration or cooperation. Absolutely, Ahmed. You can use either. We talk about collaborative learning or cooperative learning. Okay, so what we've been trying to focus on throughout is the process that's involved, okay? Mental process to a great extent, the connected procedures in order to reach our goals. And to remind you, in relation with oops, 21st century skills, our ultimate goals are for learners to have all of these skills that you've seen before, we've discussed, but also effective communication, digital literacy, problem solving, critical thinking, and so on and so forth. But how are we going to get there? When we look at skills, all right, working, connecting minds for the best result of our teaching. Yes, of course. But when we say communication, okay, between people or between an addresser and addressees, okay, as I'm trying to communicate with you, okay, and you are communicating with me, and we're doing it sort of in a digital manner. We're doing it online as best we can. Yes, it could be through messages, but it could also be face-to-face communication, yeah? Okay, but what we want is effective communication. We don't simply want to be saying things. Yes, receiving ones. All right. So you know about the 4 C's, and I've added a bit more. So it's not 4, it's a bit more. Communicators. We want our learners to be good communicators, effective and efficient communicators. We want them to be creators, collaborators, critical thinking, self-directed learners, confident decision makers. Now, in terms of self-directed learners, is this something that can happen sort of from one day to the next? No. No, Amma, no, Gada. Okay, it takes time. It needs training, absolutely. To remind you, that's where we look at learning to learn, okay? And what we need to do as much as possible is get learners to think about what they're doing and why. Engaging for more spaces of the learners by learning to learn, exactly. No? 8? You said no. No to what? Don't think of communication only from you to them. Okay, it's two participants raised hands. Would you like to speak? Should we unmute you? No? Okay. You have to raise, thank you, Amal. We have to raise students' awareness of learning strategies. And how can we do that? Sarah, yes, I prefer speaking. Sarah, can you raise your hand again so we can unmute you? Sirish?
Yes, you have to raise your hand if you want us to unmute you.
Yeah,
Oh,
Sarah raised, yeah.
Yeah, Sarah, you can unmute yourself and talk. Sarah?
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Perfectly.
Okay, could you repeat your question, please? That I want to answer precisely.
Which of the two of the questions? How?
You were asked. Yes.
How do we get to where we want to get to?
Actually, we have to have a clear vision regarding what should we do in the ESL classrooms. This is the first point. The second point, as I said before, comprehensible input or instructions. I have to show for my students the direction. Where should they go exactly and why? I have to share with them my goals. Regarding the effective communication, there are actually many creative ideas. For example, last month I got an IEL course with Russell, the guy that you gave us some of his strategies yesterday.
Yeah.
Yes, and actually I've learned from him a lot. For example, I can teach through YouTube. This is the first. Yes. For example, for having effective communication in and outside the classrooms. The second thing, establishing a portfolio. I think it's effective way for keeping in touch with your students. The third and the most important thing, the apps, especially Google apps, since they are academic and for example, you can share with your students whatever you want, wisely, effectively, and for example, it's as you know, easy to reach, easy to learn. So this is the thing that I want. Sorry for interrupting you.
No, that's fine. This is the whole idea anyway. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Okay, I think you will agree. Okay, we have discussed e-portfolios before, and in fact, we discussed them in greater detail when we did sort of project-supported learning together, and Dida mentioned it as well yesterday. As for YouTube and videos and so on, I think you have already made suggestions to that extent, particularly when it came to introducing topics and so on. Okay. Yes, there should be some kind of strategies and motivational directions, inspiring learners and icebreakers to make a good lesson planning suitable. Does that mean that you wanted to talk about lesson planning today, because this is not what I've prepared, I'm afraid. I'm trying to take everything that involves you into consideration. Okay, we're going to discuss some things that are related to lesson planning a bit later. But what I want to really stress more than anything is that these are our ultimate aims, goals. Mohammed, have you got a problem sort of hearing?
Can hear you just
okay, fine. No, okay, fine. All right. So this is not something that can be done from one day to the next, for an additional reason that these are not basically ideas that have originated from language teaching per se. They have to do with larger, wider educational changes and trends. Okay, remember constructivism and connectivism when we look at access to information and connecting through digital means. Okay, I want us to focus on communication specifically and what it means. So what I'm trying to say is, I would like us to go into the heart of some concepts. Okay, so communication, it can be face-to-face, it can be remote, yeah, as we're doing, or it can be remote through a platform where you see the other person's face. So what I would suggest is that next to remote, we'll put remote, no face contact, remote face-to-face, because if you're communicating with somebody through a platform and you've got your video, then obviously it is face-to-face. Written communication as opposed to spoken communication, or blended. When I'm looking at blended communication, it's really it's a double kind of double strand issue, isn't it? Because it's not just blended in terms of the digital aspect, it's blended. Yes, exactly, Ahmed. Yes, absolutely. Blended concept, which are updated nowadays depending on some learning environments. Okay, correct. But also communication from person to person or from groups to groups. Okay. Let me carry on with this. Okay, please. From groups to groups, or from a person to a group, and so on and so forth, can be blended. It can be reliant on spoken language as well as written language. Okay, look at what we're doing now. I'm just giving you some bullet points. Why do you think I'm giving you some bullet points? Could I be going on about this without anything, without any kind of written support? Why am I using bullet points?
To make it easy for us to follow up.
Yes, exactly. So that you have a frame of reference, okay? Because we are trying to really discuss a number of quite inclusive kind of subjects and concepts, which are quite demanding. Okay, open-ended. Yes, also open-ended to get you thinking about these aspects. Thank you, Saad. Absolutely. Okay. So let's carry on. Can communication exist out of context? That's quite all right, Abir, no problem. Hannah, that's quite all right. Can communication exist out of context? No, thank you, Abir. It can't. So when we teach our learners and we go straight for the language without building up the context, or without highlighting the context, or without getting them to reflect and identify the context, is that a meaningful way or an effective way of doing it? No. We can't have any meaning. We can't have communication out of context. I am not giving you the constituents of context, the components of context, in a very theoretical manner here. I'm trying to be as practical as possible. And also, having listened to you, having listened to all the people who have attended the sessions, I made the decision, for what it's worth, to focus on these. So, addresser, addressee, who is addressing whom? Who is talking to whom? Who is writing to whom? Or alternatively, if somebody is reading a story, is reading a book, who is the addresser and who is the addressee? The addresser could be the author, it could be the narrator if it's a story, if it's fiction, okay? I'm not going to go into the stylistic analysis of this, although it's an area that I love. But at any rate, reading is interactive as well. And there you have multiple contexts. You have the context of reading, actually. Yes, teachers to students, students to students, students to teachers in class. But when we're looking at language that we're supposed to teach, what's the context? I'm not talking about the context in class only. All right, what about reading in the library? Somebody's reading in the library, somebody's reading something at home. So the context of communication, again, let's think about speaking. All right, let's think about the productive aspect. It might be easier. What's the setting? So you have two people who are speaking. What's the setting? Where are they? Does that affect the way they speak to each other? What's the time of day? What is the actual event? Are they speaking in a lesson? Are they speaking in a social gathering? During dinner? Iftar, maybe? Okay, what is the actual message that they're trying to convey, that the speaker is trying to convey to the listener, and vice versa? Okay, and what's the language? What's the medium? Let's stop, let's consider the addresser, addressee. What's the relationship between them? Yeah, is it teacher-student? Yes, body language is fine, nonverbal signs that we use to communicate. If we can see each other, please stay with me on this. I hope I'm not boring you. Is the relationship between the addresser and addressee important? Does it affect communication? Would you speak to an older relative the same way you would speak to a friend? Thank you. Formal, informal, and so on and so forth. We're talking about genres. Yes? You would speak to a friend the way you would speak to an older relative? I'm sorry, but I'll have to look at all the sociocultural aspects there again, because I assumed sometimes, okay, fine, unless you have a very close relationship. Yes. Okay, so if you're speaking to somebody, if you're speaking to someone who is 90 years old, okay, who is a wonderful person with a lot of experience, okay, can you speak to them about social media if they're not using social media? Will they understand? No. If you use language that you use on social media, is that going to be appropriate? No. Do you share knowledge? Is there shared knowledge? No. Probably ideas are not totally shared. Attitudes are not totally shared. However, if you're speaking to a colleague, another teacher, who's about the same age as yourself, with whom you know you share some likes and dislikes, that because you also know them as friends and so on. Is there shared knowledge there? Yes. Okay. What's the setting? Are you at school? If you're at school in the teacher's room while having a meeting with the headmistress or with your supervisor, would you whisper to your friend? Or would you interrupt what's going on and speak to them openly? No, thank you. All right. So, and what is the message? What is the meaning? Okay, fine. So what I want you to stay with me, please, here. We might say something wanting to convey a certain message, but it's not given that the addressee, our listener, is going to understand what we intend to convey. So the perceived message by our listener might not be the same as our intended message. What happens in that case? If you say, for example, I'm going to ask you to do something at the level of misunderstand. Thank you. So there's going to be a breakdown, a communication breakdown. So it's not all reliant on language alone out of context. It can't be. Consider the following words and phrases. Okay, a farm. Let's concentrate on farm. Okay. Does this look like a farm in Saudi Arabia? Yes? Probably not. Different vegetation, different setting. Okay, thank you. In USA, maybe, or Northern Europe. How about this? In the South. Some of you are saying no. Is Eastern Asia? Okay, Unisa. Okay, no. All right. Okay, again, it's further up north. I'm trying to get somewhere here. Okay. Climb to the top of the dune and look over. There's a farm on the other side. What do you see? Can you describe the farm? What kind of farm is it? Has it got a wall around it? In the middle of the desert. I know there are quite a few farms in the desert. They're called farms, at least. An oasis, possibly. There's a farm over the dune, okay, on the other side of the dune. Palms. Okay. Who owns those farms in the desert? In Saudi Arabia. It's not a farm. Palm trees, yes. Oasis, okay. Pictures, feed, and other means can, yes, of course it can be effective. Palm tree farm, okay. Isn't it true that a number of people, landlord, thank you. Yes, a number of people who are quite privileged own farms in the middle of the desert in Saudi? People who are quite wealthy. No? No. Okay, yes. All right, fine. So they could be working farms, or basically they could be like holiday homes almost. Yes. Okay, fine. They vary. But do they look the same as the farms that you've seen before? Not in the dune, over the other side of the dune, in the flat area. No. Okay. So basically, no. So when you use the word farm, can you assume that everybody will have the same image in their minds through what they've experienced, through what they've seen? No. You see, this is where the problem begins. No. Okay, good. This is often where the problem begins, especially in intercultural communication that we're supposed to be preparing our students for. This is why content is important. This is why it's good to broaden what we do and to encourage learners to use all the sources that are available to them and that have access to them in order to find out about the rest of the world. Yes, they might call any garden farm. It depends on the background. Exactly. Sociocultural norms, okay? Very practical things like that. Experience, assumptions. So can we assume that everybody means the same thing by the word farm? No. I hope you can see where I'm going at, and I hope I'm not putting you to sleep. Because I wanted to address some issues just that are based on issues that you expressed, or based on things that you've expressed in previous sessions. So we cannot assume that even a simple thing like that, a farm, what you might consider a simple word, we cannot assume that the meaning is shared between speakers, yeah? May call small patch of grass a farm. Yes, exactly. Anything that could evoke that idea of farm that they have in their minds, given their setting, where they are, what they've experienced, what the norms are, the location, the experience, okay? Now, what do we need on our part as teachers to also inspire the learners and encourage the learners to do? Willingness to find out, that's all. We shouldn't really aim at knowing everything. We're not expected to know everything, but we are expected to try and find out. Well, that can apply to the learners as well. In terms of vocabulary, what's our problem here? It's a problem of denotation. The real life, oops, I'm sorry. The real life image, let learners give their images. Okay, all right. And how it's difficult to understand the same measures that we as teachers want. Thank you. Yes, Gada, football is more common here. Yes, but you can't talk about football only all the time. All right, it's not just the teachers to the students. This is an issue between speakers as well, yeah? Okay, why did I choose farm? This is very much based on a colleague's experience some years ago. A director of a company who was invited by someone to visit their farm. And when they got to the farm, okay, this person comes from a Mediterranean country. His origins are from a village. He owns quite a bit of land that can be cultivated and so on. It's not a farm per se, but he's familiar with the concepts and so on. He doesn't live there any longer. He's a director of a multinational company. So he was invited by someone to visit the person's farm, yeah, a Saudi colleague's farm in Saudi. So he expected a farm. He thought, this was going to be a casual sort of visit of a farm. When he got there, of course, he saw a mansion. Yeah, there was land. There were loads of trees and flowers, and there were patches sort of land where other things were being cultivated. There was a huge pool, and so on and so forth. You get the idea. So he was very surprised, and he felt underdressed, he said, because he thought this was going to be a farm as he knew farms to be. Okay, so we need to check assumptions. We can't really use assumptions, base everything on assumptions. It's safer to find out. Denotation is what each word or phrase is related to in real life, okay? So the problem we have is, yes, with all the things we've discussed, but it's a problem of denotation. Just so for those who are interested. Okay, now let's go to us, to the assumptions we make. And I'm including myself here, okay? What do we mean by each word or phrase? When we say prepare the lesson, from our point of view, what do we mean? What do we do when we prepare a lesson? There is no right or make it easy. How? Take a look at what? No, don't, planning, okay. Before we get into class, planning, set goals, read it beforehand, get ready with explanations, cover all the important points so that try to understand it. Pictures and paragraphs, know the content, note taking, understand difficulties, okay? Find out the main ideas, the steps we will follow, so you plan. Know the students and their background, add some points, expand the ideas, okay? Adapt, in other words. Details, look up new words, thank you. Facilitate it and use materials. Facilitate how? Abdullah Rahman, collect data. Do you collect data or do you ask the students to collect data? Thinking out of the box, the needs of the students. Yes, okay, fine. So prepare the lesson, mastering, be mentally prepared, close to the students' understanding, make it accessible, in other words. Yes, good, focusing on goals. Yes, Noah. Okay, apply, make some, okay, can you stop? I think we've got enough. Have you said the same things? Thank you. Thank you. So you seem to associate prepare the lesson with all sorts of different aspects, different priorities, different actions. You see? So it's good to bear this in mind. It's very important for me to bear this in mind. Yes, link the lesson to real life and how to apply it and so on. So basically, do you all mean exactly the same thing through this phrase, prepare the lesson? Which is probably a very high frequency. Yes, no, obviously not. You're looking at different aspects of it. You have different priorities. Some people went for words, some people went for the learners, some people went for different things. Okay. So, from the teacher's point of view, what does it imply from the learner's point of view? Yes, you have different aspects and priorities. Should you, or should we maybe, if we have the chance to meet again, agree some priorities and aspects? And let's try and do that in this session as much as we can, okay? For the learners, okay? When we were discussing flipping class, okay? Teachers used this phrase, prepare the lesson, asks the learners to prepare the lesson. I assumed wrongly, in the case of some people at least, because some meant what I'd assumed, I assumed that teachers meant to open the book and ask the students, yes, check the difficult word, read the lesson, in other words, read the text and find and prepare it for the lesson. Watch videos is fine. And I instantly objected to this because it's different if you ask the students to watch a video before they come to class, because you want to talk about the topic, introduce the topic. That's fine. To flip the previewing, in other words, to some extent at least, that's great. But asking them to read the text in their books and prepare the lesson, flip it in that way, is not fine. Okay, Dida talked about it yesterday. I'm confirming it again. Why isn't it fine? First of all, have all your students developed? Yes, fine. Ahmed, I have absolutely no problem with you giving them a listening task and a video to watch and get them to watch and get as much information as possible. That's fine. That's super. But asking them to read the text in the course book and prepare the lesson is really potentially problematic, because not all your students are at the same level, are they? Are they? No. No, the problem is not with weak students. The problem is with asking them to do this. We try to ensure that all learners develop to the extent that they can develop. Not everybody is going to develop to the same point. But when you're asking them to prepare a lesson from their books, I assume, yes, individual differences. Yes, they could find it boring. I assume that you do use things that you do from the course book to also test, yes? To assess. Constructive and previous knowledge is fine. Thank you, Sharifa. If they read the text and prepare the lesson, what is left for you to do? Exactly. They might get the wrong concept. And also, please think of students. Some students might have some support at home. Some students might have parents who can help them prepare the lesson, so they know everything when they come to class, or so they think. They might even have a tutor who helps them at home. But some haven't. How are you going to balance that? So what I would say is, it would be best to avoid flipping the actual course book lesson. It's great if you give them material that is connected with the topic, like a video, okay, or Googling the topic and researching, yes, fine. That's great. I'm thinking, however, of very practical factors that make it unfair. Yes, of course, is connected to the topic, all right? But I wouldn't flip the actual lesson in the book, because that's related with assessment, because not all your students have the same access to help or sources and so on and so forth. This is, yes, because you want to motivate them and connect the text with real life, you give them videos, you ask them to search, okay, and find information about the topic. That's fine. The topic, not the text. Thank you, Gada. This is what I'm trying to say. Yes, if they misunderstand, it's going to be difficult to correct, but it's great to give them things to do in order to help them develop these skills that are transferable and they have access to. Research, watch a video, and make notes, okay? Absolutely, Ahmed. If you have them in groups, some can speak, some can write, and some can search. Yes. Yes. Okay, fine. All right. So I hope we've got that. Yes, that prepares them for the text in a sense, but it doesn't get them to do the lesson before you do it in class. Exactly. If you do that, then the students will do the exercises as well. And then what happens in class? You are making your life and the learner's life more difficult, basically. So yes, by all means, do ask them to do things, flip certain parts of your lessons. Okay. Another word, remember. What do we mean by remember? It could be recall. Don't forget. Yes, questions in terms of the knowledge is fine. Yes. Okay. Yes, also remember previous knowledge. Okay. Well, yes, this is why we do the previewing as well. The background. Okay, fine. I'm going to move on. So these are possibilities that I put down. Preview the topic through video. Research, search and collect information. Make connections, absolutely. Read the text and look up new words and phrases. Is that okay? These are likely interpretations. Some teachers meant this. What I'm saying is, this is bad news. Read and do the reading activities. Bad news. Not before you actually work through the lesson in class. Prepare questions about the text. Yes, if you're going along the lines of what I know, what I expect to find out, what I want to learn, and so on and so forth. As revision is a different matter altogether. So fine. Write in your language why. Do you want them to translate, Ahmed? Paraphrase, but in their first language. Ahmed, can you please clarify that? Okay. Summarizing involves specific steps. Okay. We haven't got the time to go through that today. Okay. Some other things that people do. Reading aloud. In their words, okay? Reading aloud. Please tell me. Bad news, lot. Thank you, Eman. Exactly. What are we supposed to be teaching our students to do? Oops. Read silently or read aloud? Yes, fine. Why both? Silently. Thank you, Abir. Exactly. Silently. What do efficient readers in the real world do? According to the level, Ahmed, in initial literacy, in primary, when you're basically teaching them to read, you want to connect sound and written language. That's a different matter altogether. That has to do with literacy. But here you've got teenagers who are looking out, okay, towards real life. And the idea is that you will help them. You will help them, man. You will help them develop the abilities that they need in order to be effective in their work and what they need to do in real life. So to begin with, yes, silently. You want them to read silently. Yes, you're aiming for a specific skill. So you get them, for example, you tell them to look at the questions, then read the text, okay? Or what I do personally is, before they even read the text, look at the questions. From what you know, can you answer any of them? Think about possible answers, then read the text to confirm that or modify their answers, okay? And then discuss the answers in class. Thank you, Abir. Okay? Just to connect things. Simple ideas are the best, okay? But simple ideas that connect the different stages. It's not, the solution is not to have 5 fun ideas and everything is fine. Or 5 ideas that you think are original. There is nothing that is terribly original. You have to visualize and think of how you're going to process things. So if your ultimate aim is to train learners to read, understand, notice, select relevant information, interpret, reflect, comment on content, which would be more beneficial? Reading silently or reading aloud? If your ultimate aim, not even within the lesson, not even within the trimester, on a long-term basis, thank you, silently, Eman. Now, I know what you're going to say. You're going to say, what about pronunciation? First of all, we need to distinguish between reading for content, for meaning, and reading for language. The same would apply to listening. Okay, but at different stages, my reading silently is what you want them to be able to do. When we read silently, we don't read every single letter, every single word necessarily, okay? If people who can read effectively and read fast have different strategies, okay? So silent reading is faster than aloud. Okay, aloud is better to help weak readers. Yes, but you can do it later in the lesson. And aloud is going to get you to, is going to really lose you the stronger readers. Ahmed, you agree that aloud is better to help weak readers? First, do the work that you're going to do in order to develop. If you're developing reading skills, you develop reading skills through reading silently. If at the end of your lesson, you want them to also listen to audio and follow in the text, fine. Exactly, Aman. Reading meant to gather information, to understand the meaning, not connecting it with pronunciation. My weak readers will complete reading? I don't understand. Exactly. We're talking about developing reading skills here. If you want to then focus, then after you've done all the activities that have to do with reading for a purpose, okay, reading silently, you want to then go back to the text and focus on a specific structure or specific language, specific phrases or specific words, go ahead. Okay, I'm thinking more of top down over here. Of course, I don't like reading aloud because reading aloud is a particular skill. Do you know, actors are trained to read aloud. Broadcasters are trained to read aloud. Reading aloud is not about comprehension. Yes, thank you, Sharifa. It's true. Reading is a skill that makes students practice many skills. I would say reading is an opportunity for our students to think, to process, to learn how to work on their own, to develop their confidence about what they can do and what they can think about. Yeah, okay. But you can't always aim at everything at once. When we're developing receptive skills, okay, fine, use colors to help the students to read each part, fine. Skimming and scanning are particular skills that you will need to train your learners in through the task that you set, okay? Exactly, Amal. All right. I don't think I've convinced you on this one. We would need more time. Title the paragraphs. Good. It says it's a good task, that, but because what happens? You identifying the main idea. Very good, Ahmed. You've put it in a nutshell. Absolutely. I couldn't have put it in better words. Thank you so much. Reading aloud is great for preparing future leaders. Silent reading is a good tool for future thinkers. Thank you so much. Okay. Do you translate words? No, good. We're not talking about beginners. We're talking about secondary students. Okay. So you wouldn't translate. Good. You use dictionaries. Good. You train your learners to work out the meaning from sentences, from the context. Use pictures. Good. Give examples. Okay. All the means that are possible. Thank you so much. Because if you do that, you're doing more than just words. You're doing listening and understanding. You're giving them an opportunity to use what they know. What about writing sentences with the new vocabulary items? Show pictures, yes. Put the new word in a sentence. Do you know, when I was a student studying languages, studying French, I used to hate this. I used to hate writing sentences with new words. Why? Because it's upside down. Because you have to think of a context. Okay? So instead of asking people to write sentences, what I would go for is give them sentences with blanks, don't help them anymore, and get them to try and read them, understand what kind of word they need to fill them in. Ah, okay, fine. Very good. Do silent reading, okay. So you ask them to listen and follow in their books. So you don't give them a task. You don't say, okay, now read the text and answer these questions. Okay, Maha, all right. What does knowing a word involve? You got a taste of that, yeah? When we looked at good, know the meaning and the part of speech. Okay, fine. Meaning in context, okay? The concept as well as the effective meaning. The effective meaning, okay, attitude, feelings, has to do with connotation, negative connotation, positive connotation, neutral connotation. Denotation that you saw through the farm, style and register, language varieties, and so on and so forth. Context, frequency, corpus. Sorry, I'm rushing through this because we're not focusing only on lexis. Maybe that's something we should do in future, should we get the chance to meet again. Meaning and opposites, okay, fine. When you're working through opposites and synonyms, make sure there's a context, because there are no pure opposites and no pure synonyms. Thank you very much, Amal. Yes, exactly. It is natural for students to maybe quickly translate in their minds. But if they're going to translate and write the word in Arabic, I'll tell you what, ask them to write it in their books over the word, not separately in a list. Because if they write it in a list and they have a bilingual list of words, then they'll probably use the wrong words to say things that they want to say or misunderstand. Yes, I mean, it's natural. People will do that for confirmation as well. but make sure it's in context. Make sure they realize that this is what it means in this particular case. Don't encourage them to write bilingual lists of words. Yes, exactly. That's exactly what I said. The positive, negative, or neutral, Ahmed. Okay. Not okay to use it in class. No, because you're wasting time sort of doing something that is not really going to help them become more confident and more independent. Sharifa, why not teach them how to use monolingual dictionaries, English to English dictionaries? There are so many that they have access to online. And when they use dictionaries, they also see examples. They can see how the word is used with other words, collocation, word grammar, what forms they can use where. So we get a lot more. This is why we insist on this, not because it's a dogma. Okay. There are some funny things that happen in language, aren't there? Okay. When you say it's terribly important, is terrible a word that has a negative or a positive meaning? Yes, using a dictionary is absolutely a skill that you need to help them develop. Yes, guessing the meaning is good. Negative. And yet, important. Is important negative, positive, or neutral? It's likely to be positive in most cases. All right. Look at this very strange collocation. It's terribly important. What do we mean by terribly important? Very important. So basically what you're going to come across in collocations as well are all sorts of things like that. This is for you. This is to remind you, extremely, very important. Thank you. And yet terrible and terribly, he's terribly sick, for example, is negative, clearly negative. But here, it's got a very positive meaning, hasn't it? Context, again. Not only the sentence, the whole context. Why is it important to bear things like that in mind? Because you have students, you have students who are exposed to the language through films, videos, games, and so on, who hear the language, see the language as it's being used. You need the connection, you need to connect it. And for that purpose, in the last session, I did suggest that teachers should expose themselves to language as much as possible, not by necessarily studying books, but doing things that they enjoy in English, okay? Watch films that you like, all right? Films, videos, do anything at all that pleases you, okay? Search the web, find any articles and blogs that you think have topics that you're interested in, anything at all. But you need the exposure because teacher development, language development is for all of us. Let's remember that language evolves, it changes. Yes, Reem, absolutely. You say it's chilly out. What do you mean by chilly? Okay, we're in Britain, all right? And I'm about to leave my friend's house and she says, it's chilly out. Don't forget to take a coat. Yes, it's cold out. It's cold. I wouldn't say a little cold. I would say cold. It's chilly out. Okay, don't forget your coat. So chilly here, is it negative or positive? Freezing, thank you. Negative, thank you. And yet, in expressions, colloquial expressions, you have chill out, chill. Your students know these expressions. And when it's chill out or chill, is it negative or positive? Thank you. So you see, there are aspects that we need to take into consideration. I would say collocation, which words we can use a word with, is possibly the most important one. This is why it's a good idea not to isolate words, but to get learners to notice what other words go with them in texts, in what they hear. Okay, so this is what we might regard as an irregularity, but it happens all the time. Memory, remembering. We also have a mental lexicon, okay, of sorts. We categorize things, okay? I like real talk and mega goals, yes. Okay, but the categorization is not the same for all individuals. So if I say, think of a clothing item that begins with the letter B, what will you say? A clothing item that begins with the letter B. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Good. Now, think of a word that begins with the letter C and is a clothing item. Okay, I think it's different people. All right, fine. Which one did you think was easier? This one, think of a clothing item that begins with the letter B. Or this one, think of a word that begins with the letter C and is a clothing item. The second, the same for some of you. Okay, it's going to vary. It depends on what helps you, but the point is that we do remember language, we remember words, we organize and record vocabulary in our minds in certain categories, and they're not the same for everybody. Chances are that the way we organize lexical items, which include phrases, yeah, in our minds, yes, we organize them differently, but we certainly don't organize them the way dictionaries are organized, yeah? So that's something to think about. And think about what? Think about how you're going to get the learners to record words. Get them to create topical dictionaries. The topical dictionaries are going to have cross-referencing. So they can begin right when you begin the year, yeah, putting them under the specific topic of the unit. But then they're going to come across those in the next topic, possibly. So there's going to be cross-referencing. So they could maybe highlight those words and make a note, okay? Or include them again in the next one. If they use their, if they can use if they have access to computers or to some sort of device, it's not difficult to do, yeah? To also transfer those words to another topic. So this way, it is cumulative. You do a little bit as you move on. And definitely you ask them to do this at home. Yeah, they don't have to do it in class. You can show them what to do in class, but they do it at home. So learner awareness of different aspects of meaning, of the fact that one word can have totally different meanings in different contexts is important. Teaching them to notice is important. And helping them to manage inhibitions. You should prepare them a mini dictionary of the course. Ebooks support them with different kind of vocabulary directions, pictures, and in a simple way. Okay. Very nice. Great, Ahmed. Okay. At this level and this age group, I would try and get them. I wouldn't do all of it. I would also ask them to look up things in dictionaries and contribute. So half and half, sort of share it with them. But it's great what you do. Okay. Conscious and principled processing, being aware of why we do things. Okay, independent learning doesn't happen sort of from one day to the next. And also it involves priorities, practical factors, transferable skills, and so on and so forth. I'm rushing. Can everyone learn on their own? Yes, well done, Ahmed. Yes? Aren't you hopeful? If they are trained to learn, learning to learn, if they are encouraged to think, if they feel confident, so it's important that you guide them so that you scaffold things and get them to that point. But it's important. Okay. So in terms of self-access, open learning is the thing now, yeah? People learn on their own. Not everybody, but a lot of people do learn on their own completely, okay? So it's self-directed, but I wouldn't say that that's the average. Yes, learn individually, Ahmed. Or if you like, what used to be called individualized learning, not any longer. Now it seems to be the norm. So can everyone learn on their own? Probably not at this moment, but we don't know how things will pan out over time because there's access to so much. Distant learning, e-learning, blended learning have already gained abundant ground and are accessible to considerably more people compared, sorry, there's a D missing, to traditional on-site education. Yes? Being able to learn anywhere, anytime is undeniably a very attractive prospect. Yes? Is mere exposure to language adequate for everyone? Yes, 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 Ahmed. Great. Yes, your daughter enjoys language via programming. Super. Okay. But for a lot of people, mere exposure is not adequate. Okay. So those are the people who need a bit of learning and confidence building. So how are you going to do that? By asking them to do things in small steps and aiming at incremental development. You mentioned, for example, weak learners some time ago. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is, and what I believe is that the key is development. Especially if you have a very diverse class, which I know you do in some cases, you can't expect everybody to reach the same outcome. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to be realistic from what I know. But what you can do is help everybody develop to some extent, to the extent that they can, to the extent that they're able. And that should be enough. We should really focus on development more than the outcome. So if you have what you call a weak student who has developed, but is not doing as well as your more confident students, I wouldn't like to say strong, more confident students, I don't think that person should be penalized by getting sort of a bad mark or failing because they have developed. And I think this is something that we need to take into consideration in assessment. Yes, this is why we should differentiate instructions, Amal. I agree with you. Exactly. Different, they could be excellent ones in different spaces. Yes. Okay. Because we've talked about projects time and time again, and those of you who are interested, you have access to other sessions that we've done, I'm sure, so you could look up some things if you wanted to. Here's my suggestion of a project that is not textbook reliant. Okay, I was thinking of video games, yeah? A project on video games. The genres, different types of video games, yeah? I've listed some. I've left out the ones that you would consider more violent. Sandbox, real-time strategy, role-playing, simulation and sports, puzzlers, action, adventure, platformer. There is information about these. Let me check. Yes. No. No. The link is not there. Okay, let me say this. Google video game genres or video game types, and you're going to get some very good material, some very good sources on them. Yes, yes, Ahmed, exactly. Students learn together, they learn from each other, and it's the best way to encourage them to do self-directed work, to research, to develop all the skills that are transferable. So what I would do is assign a different game genre per group or pair, all right? So this to one group or one pair, this to another group and so on, or let them choose. Provide links or ask learners to research and find out about the game genre, the particular game genre. As I said, Google video game genres or video game types or types of video games, and you'll get all the relevant material. Ask them to make notes in their group. Okay, this work can be done outside of class. How can they work? They can work on Google Docs if they want, or any other apps that allow them to work simultaneously, work together. So you can basically flip this, yes? Find research, find the information and make notes on each genre. Note, use gamers in your class as consultants or leaders in groups so they can help. Padlet, yes. Okay. Flip. Pairs and groups work through a platform online to contribute notes and ideas. Again, it's flipped, it's outside of class. Note, learners can use Google Docs or other app that allows access to the participants of each group. So each group works on one genre. You communicate with each group online or face-to-face to help monitor, as you suggested, confirm that they're on the right track, but after they've done the work. Ask groups to prepare a presentation of their assigned game genre with examples and illustrations to present to the class on-site or online. This is why I'm suggesting video games. This might kind of intrigue them. You'll find other things. Find out about your learners. What are they interested in? What do they watch? Which are the topics that they're interested in? There must be something. And at the end of the day, you can only do the best you can. Ask the audience. So basically you have information gap and information exchange, yeah? So the groups have worked on separate genres. They don't know the information about each other's genres. So there is an information gap there, which means that they have to exchange information, but really exchange information. So if you want to do this in a practical way, what I would suggest is that you ask each group to make a presentation. It could be 5 minutes, 7 minutes, 10 minutes? More, you decide. Okay, online, so it can be watched by everybody. The audience makes notes as they watch and listen. Tell them that they can ask questions after they've been completed, after the presentation has been completed. If there isn't enough time to do the question asking, answering, get the students to ask their questions in Google Docs. Okay, put their questions on Google Doc, so that, or a blog if they have a blog, or anything at all, so that each group that is responsible for the genre can read them and prepare answers. Use gamers in your class as moderators, okay? Instead of moderating myself, I would use gamers as moderators, okay? So if you ask the questions at that moment, the audience asks questions, the presenter answers with the help of the moderator if necessary. Question and answer can be carried out online, as I said, or flipped in time as an issue, okay? One more idea, cumulative projects and activities. We've already touched upon them. Sorry, I'm checking the time. 5 minutes. Trivia. For those of you who attended yesterday's session, Dida showed you a game, right? Where you could have questions about a subject to answer? Yeah, good. Okay. Something that you can build up throughout the year on the different subjects that you work on. Focusing on content. It's not a language, it's focus on content. You're giving them the chance to use the language they've learned, focusing on content. Okay, so this is an idea for learner-created mega trivia, but in the beginning, it's mini trivia. So it's built over time. I assume that everybody knows what trivia is. Yes? The game. Focusing on information about a number of different things, a number of different subjects, okay? So learner-created. Built over time by teams, groups, pairs, or individual learners. I prefer teams. And what I had suggested in an earlier session is, given the circumstances and lack of time and all that, I think it's best if you create teams right when you start with a class and keep the teams going for at least 1 or 2 semesters, if not trimesters, if not the whole year. So you can set up things faster and more clearly for the learners, more effectively. Okay, learners write and contribute trivia questions. So it's a way to get them to think of questions and create questions based on the content, the information in texts, videos, other sources that they have worked on. No, Alam, there are no handouts today because everything is on the transparencies. There is more than we've discussed. Okay, set times for contributions alongside units or on a weekly or bi-weekly basis. So the questions come in every week, okay, from each group. Each group might contribute 1 or 2 questions. It doesn't have to be a lot. Use the randomizers or create a board with numbers at each stop, circle. Each question can only be used once. Okay. Here. This is another idea. You will find all kinds of board game templates on Google. Yes. Yeah, okay. We call it trivia. It's maybe some of the facts that you'll have in this are going to be important, not unimportant. Okay. A Google trivia means data. Yeah. But we're not using it in the literal sense like that, okay? we're using it very much referring to data, to information. All right. So question asking about things they've learned, but the content, okay, the information, not language questions, but using English in order to form the questions. Okay, so examples of board templates that you can use to create your own games. You've got links. Collaborative writing, we had spoken about in earlier sessions. I've just included part of that material to help those of you who did not attend that particular session, as well as reflective learning and technology mediated learning, task-based learning. Why play quiz? Quizzes encourage pupils' self-awareness of progress and self-assessment. Thank you so much. By taking pupils get instant feedback on this, and this can help them identify areas they need to develop. Okay, fine. That's super for them to be proud of. I couldn't have put it in better words. Ahmed, you'll do the session next time. Okay, brushing. Just look at the transparencies if you like. I've just included them, as I said, for people who did not attend other sessions. These are roles that you could assign to people in projects. And what I wanted to remind you of is that you can turn anything to a project. So it doesn't have to be the project section of your unit. It can be, for example, gossip. Why we gossip, all right? Get them to research and follow those steps to find out, exchange information, and so on and so forth. Okay, I'm not going to keep you. I understand that people are in a hurry to leave. I've already kept you a minute more. I'm sorry if not everything in this session pleased everybody. Unfortunately, because we get different people, except for some of you that seem to be attending all or most sessions, and thank you so much for doing that. We try to sort of maintain connections between sessions. This is Danai, it's not Dita. Okay, Ahmed, thank you so much for your contribution. Thank you, and I do hope we meet again.
Yes,
I'm Danai, not Dida. Okay.
Thank you, Danai. Thanks a lot. I do hope we meet in person as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you so much, everyone, for your time, for being here. This is the last session, so there is no session tomorrow. This is our last session for secondary teachers. Please expect a certificate in your inbox next week, along with the recording and the presentation as well. Thank you so much and have a great Eid. Bye.
Thank you.